wow, that intro fired me up. That is all I could say. But in any event, welcome to Hitting for the Cycle on the Empty the Bench podcast network. Our very first episode. Okay, well, that's not entirely true, but that's neither here nor there. I'm Hank Indictor, and joining me as always is my co-host, John Czech. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at HFTC ETB. And of course, if you want to follow the Empty the Bench network, you can find us at ETB Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. There is a lot of great content that will be coming your way. We've got a lot of other good shows. We've got a basketball show such as the 3&D, for instance. But in any event, you could also, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please hit that big red button down below. And last but not least, you can follow us on our website, etbpodcast.com, for more great blogs and more information as well. And let me just start off by introducing the new co-host for Hitting for the Cycle. That'll be John Czech. John, how's it going?
I can't believe it. I'm with Podcasting Royalty. Hank, I need to come up with a nickname for you. We're going to think it's going to be like Hammer and Hank or Hank and Tank. The fact that I get to sit next to you and we get to do this pod that we've been waiting for over a month to start, I'm psyched.
So to give you guys a little bit of context, this is really more Hitting for the Cycle 2.0. This show was on a different network for the past couple years. I don't want to get into the full story of that, but John, you were actually on a few episodes at the end of last year. We talked about the World Series with a previous co-host of yours. Hopefully we can get him on a few episodes of this show, the kid with the golden locks. Shout out to him.
Yeah, I'll drag him on here. Don't you worry about it. We'll drag him. We'll make him jump on this pod. It ain't just gonna be you and me. We gotta get him too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Gotta bring him to the little trio. But in any event, what we will pretty much be about is straightforward. We are going to be bringing you a lot of the top stories in the MLB as it always comes out, and I'm really excited to get this show on the road. I've pretty much been hiatus on the show for a few months, but now I'm ready to get started again. We now have John officially in the fold, and without further ado, let's start off with our first topic for this episode. And why not go with some of the biggest surprises and disappointments of the 2023 MLB season since we are at the All-Star break? And John, how about I start this off with you? Who are your biggest disappointments of the 2023 MLB season?
Okay, so my 3 is going to be the Padres, the Cardinals, and the Blue Jays. Now, reasons for it. Padres is brutally obvious. You had Padres fans calling Dodgers stadium ticket offices, sitting there prank calling them because they knocked the Dodgers out of the NLCS or the MLDS to go to the NLCS, and they're sitting there writing checks with their mouth that their ass can't cash. And now look at them. They're sitting down in the bottom of the division. They got all these big superstar players. 3/4 of them haven't performed. And self-explanatory, all that money, they extend Manny Machado to do what? So they can look up at the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers and the Giants. Sorry. Secondly, St. Louis Cardinals. The NL Central was a joke. The AL Central was a joke. Both Centrals were the joke. You didn't have to even be marginally that good to be a first-place team in either division. And what do the Cardinals do? They're Washington Nationals level bad. And Ollie Marmol has been made a joke of this entire season. You know, it all started back when he started spouting his mouth out. I believe it was Tyler O'Neill that he was chastising about not running around a base hard enough. And then last but not least, the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, I know the Toronto Blue Jays are a team in contention, but this is a team that the last 2 years we've heard about how good they're going to be. And there's all the expectations. They're supposed to be a first-place team. And it's absolutely fallen apart for them. You know, they've been a team that's basically been on the margins. They've been a team that hasn't been anything that special. Their offense hasn't been that great. You expect Vladimir Guerrero to be, you know, close to what he did that one year. He almost took the MVP from Shohei Ohtani, but he hasn't. They've been extremely average. They've been extremely in the mean. And they've been disappointed. They should be better than this by now after a couple of years of that core they've had.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of the Toronto Blue Jays, not only, John, did you say that they should be better, I mean, haven't we heard about this movie that Vlad Guerrero Jr. was bragging about? Remember what he said at the beginning of last year, and then they proceeded to turn 8-1 into the baseball version of 28-3, at least in the wild card game.
A joke.
Yeah, no, I would say more like a horror movie is what we've been watching with regards to the Toronto Blue Jays. And my first two are pretty much the same as yours. I mean, when you have all that hype, when you have so many years of AJ Preller throwing into his money, pushing all his chips into the middle of the table, and then for them to have that surprise NLCS appearance to go to being in fourth place, yeah, you can't be ignored when it comes to the top three baseball disappointments, in my opinion. The Cardinals, again, that pretty much speaks for itself with all the talent they have. If you have half your infield consists of Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and you turn out to be not even just contention with the Washington Nationals for worst team in the NL, but Colorado Rockies level bad too, because that's another team that has been very mid. Yeah, no, those are two teams that are pretty obvious ones, but I'm going to go a different way than you in terms of biggest disappointments. I'm going to say the Cleveland Guardians, because you look at that roster. Remember last year they had that unexpected appearance in the ALDS. The Yankees ended up beating them in 5 games, but on average, I believe they were the youngest roster in the league, and I was on record for praising Chris Antonetti for what a good job he had done in building that roster. But unfortunately, the problem with them this year is they haven't really been able to score enough runs, which is a really dang shame, because their pitching rotation has definitely been solid. And I don't know if you looked at the numbers, John, their bullpen is actually tops in the league, and you're wasting that with such horrible offense. Like, and especially you would think with a manager like Terry Francona, they'd be a lot better, but no, they're still looking behind the Minnesota Twins for first place. And you could actually, let me give you a hot take for you. I think you could low-key argue that the Twins have been a disappointment because they've been on and off, but again, they're only winning that division because the AL Central is shit.
Yeah, it's a joke. And I mean, you look too at some of their additions. They added Mike Zunino to try to help get some offense behind the plate. Mm-hmm. It absolutely failed. They ended up calling up Josh Naylor's little brother, Bo Naylor, to come up, and he's actually helped them a little bit. Josh Bell has done essentially nothing this year. They have guys like Miles Straw, who can't hit his way out of a wet paper bag. You know, their team last year was so predicated on not striking out, putting the ball in play, and they were getting a lot out of their young guys all at once. And this year, it just has not been the case, where like guys like Stephen Kwan and whatnot have just been able to hit like they did last year, and they've been able to put together rallies like they were. And now they lost Tristan McKenzie for probably the year. They don't know if they're going to trade Bieber or not. Cal Quantrill hasn't been nearly as good. And they do have some absolutely great pieces in the back end of their bullpen. But if there's one thing I will say about them, is last year they were kind of a meh team. And then towards the last month and a half of the season, they kicked it on, and they absolutely destroyed the Central and ended up squeaking out 90 wins after being kind of a meh team. And in a division as bad as this, you know, there's a lot of chances, because they still have a lot of games left with the Tigers, although the Tigers have played them a little bit more tough the last year. They still have games left with the Royals. The White Sox are a crappy team. They are just so inconsistent. And the Twins are beatable. So who knows? But I agree with you. I mean, you expect them, that young core. They finally added some offense. And it got to the point where Mike Zunino's not even there. He got DFA'd. Gosh. I can't disagree with you there that they should definitely be better than they should, especially in a division as crappy as them. And I think my last point, I think the biggest thing about them is the schedule change. Now they're not beating up on all those teams last year they did 19 times a year. Now they're playing more. They got to play the AL East more, the AL West, the NL East, the NL West. So now those big games, man, where these teams like, you know, the Tigers were able to cash in on that when they were good for those 4 years where they were winning the division. They were able to play crappy teams 19 times a year. And now the Guardians can't do that, and it's definitely hurt them.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you actually could argue the White Sox is another case for a pretty big disappointment too, by the way.
I mean, you could put the whole AL Central on this list, this big disappointments. Anyone besides the Tigers and the Royals, because they weren't looked upon as anything good this year. But those top three teams they're just crap. If they played in the AL East, they would be so buried. You'd be they basically if the AL Central was in the AL East, the AL Central would be in the ground in a casket, and you'd be putting dirt on it right now because they'd be so buried. All those teams suck compared to the AL East or West.
Yeah, no, for sure. And now let's move on to the biggest surprises. I'm going to start this one off right here. The first team I'm going to say for the big surprise is the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, John, you've probably watched a good amount of games. I know you pretty much live in the area. That team has gone out of nowhere. Ellie De La Cruz has become a really insane prospect for them. 10 wins in a row, and now I would say they're pretty much comfortably in first place because, I mean, you look at that division, who's going to catch them? The Pirates were in first for a good amount of the year, but now they're pretty much falling apart. The Cardinals, we already mentioned, are blech, and the Milwaukee Brewers have kind of been up and down, up and down, up and down. So I have a feeling they might stay the way they are. I mean, look, are they like world beaters? Not necessarily, but you have to give them credit. And you look at the turnaround that they've made from a year ago. That's a pretty good story right there. However, a bigger story that I think I need to bring up would be the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't think anybody expected them to be, forget about being in first place. Did anybody even think they would challenge the Dodgers, much less the Padres? Not me, but you're getting really good production from guys like Zach Gallen, and Corbin Carroll is probably going to be your rookie of the year, or he's very much in the conversation at least. And not to mention, you're also getting good production from Ketel Marte, who I'll get to in a little bit later for another segment. This is a really good story right there, and I think Torey Lovullo is going to get some consideration for manager of the year. And last but not least, for biggest surprise, I got to go with the Texas Rangers. I mean, I did not think they were going to be even sniffing the Houston Astros. I thought maybe third place, second if they were lucky. But you look at the production that their offense has had, they are pretty much, at one point, they were like, had a historic pace for run differential. They were scoring a lot, and they've been really been getting good production out of their pitching staff, which is amazing when you consider the fact that they really have not gotten to see Jacob deGrom much this year, and you're not even going to get him back until probably the middle of next year if you're lucky. So that speaks volumes to how well of a job Bruce Bochy has done. And, of course, you got a really good lineup with Jonah Heim, Corey Seager,
Adolis Garcia.
Marcus Semien. Adolis Garcia is an absolute stud. Great team for sure. And that's an obvious surprise. How about yours, John?
So I don't think Texas's biggest surprise, though, because
really,
basically Texas did what San Diego and New York couldn't do. They bought expensive free agents. They sucked that 1 year, let their guys kind of develop a little bit, and then they bought again in getting Jacob deGrom, and then they Heaney and Eovaldi. But I think the biggest it's worked out. The money has worked, because I think the thing is you look at the Padres, they're very top heavy.
Yes.
Grisham and Cronenworth don't do much for me at the bottom end of their lineup. But when you got Leody Taveras and Duran and Heim and Jung, along with Seager, along with Semien, that makes a big difference. The overall team, they were able to suck for a year after they went out and spent all that money on them, and then put an actual core of young players around them, where like Steve Cohen, he thinks, hey, I'm just going to buy everybody, and they're automatically going to gel, and they're going to be a good team. And it doesn't work, because you look at like the Mets rookies and stuff, their core around them, not that great. It's like outside of Pete Alonso, it's been pretty average at best. So, but that's the only reason why I don't think they're like that big of a surprise. The fact that they're in first place, I could agree with, but Houston's coming on fast, and they're getting Jordan back. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents on it. So my first one's gonna be and I know what they did last year, they improved. They were over a 500 team. And the only reason why I say the Orioles is the Orioles, if you remember, at the trade deadline, they said that this offseason was going to be the offseason. They were going to spend some money. They were going to add. But there was all that BS that was happening along with ownership, because that family was internally feuding and all that stuff. They got it all worked out. But the Orioles didn't go out and add anybody. They basically just continued to call up rookies and give Gunnar and Adley and Cedric and all these guys a chance. And a lot of people were like, well, they had that kind of historic improvement, which I think they won like almost 30 games more than they did the season before. And that's like something that's extremely hard to replicate to keep from year to year, because your law of averages says you're going to come to somewhere in your means between year before and that present year. But this year, I've said this and I'm going to stick to this. And here's a hot take for you, Hank Tank.
Oh, let's hear it.
The Orioles are going to win the AL East this year.
Wow.
Yes, they are going to catch the Tampa Bay Rays. They are a team that has not had a lot of injuries. They are a team that has put together a makeshift rotation that's been extremely competitive. They have done a really good job with a bunch of nobodies. And they are a team that is young. They are hungry. And if this doesn't show you that they didn't add anybody, but they have gone in-house, whether it's been with their bullpen with Bautista and Yarner Cano, and they just called up another one of their bigger prospects. I forget his name, but I think he's a left-handed hitter. But to go along with
Hauser,
that's it, Hauser. Yes, they are. I think this year they're not going to be sellers; they're going to be buyers 100%. And I think with the Tampa Bay Rays getting a little bit hurt, their pitching has been tested, and they have finally hit their first skid of the season. I think the Orioles have a shot because they've stayed healthy. Their bullpen is really good, and their starting pitching they haven't had to deal with many injuries. So I think the Orioles are going to go, and they are going to leapfrog the Rays somewhere at the very end. I know that's a take of takes, but I'm sticking with it because I believe in them.
I mean, look, I've been talking with other people about this. It's really not that far-fetched because I'm going to read you the standings right now as we are recording this. Unfortunately for yours truly, they're absolutely destroying the Yankees right now as we speak, and there's no way the Yankees are going to come back from this score. Then good thing I'm not even watching this, but they have 50 wins right now. It'll be 51 by the time this episode gets up, so I should really update that. But I'm going to do what John Sterling usually does and look at the all-important loss column, because even though they're 5 games out, they're only 3 games behind in that part of the standings to the Tampa Bay Rays. So, look, all it takes is a Tampa Bay losing streak, and John, all of a sudden, we're going to look back at this episode. It's really not that as far-fetched as it seems, and I like the production of that lineup. You get them a lead late into a game, and yeah.
He's amazing.
Exactly.
He pitched a perfect game in consecutive innings pitched before he finally gave up his first hit. And he actually did it versus the Tigers. I think he was 28 innings in with no hits given up. He is insane. So you're talking about the Tampa Bay Rays losing streak. They're 4-6 and lost in their last 10 and lost the last 4 straight. So as your man John Sterling says to Susan Waldman, that's baseball, Susan. You never know. It could happen, and I'm sticking with it because the Rays have done this before, and there's been plenty of teams that have come out hot as hell out of the gate, destroyed the competition, and didn't end up in first place. New York Yankees last year. So, it doesn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if the Orioles win the division, and I'm sticking with it. So, to keep moving on, my second surprise is the Giants. And this
I like that.
This team last year, they go and they win a division by 1 game, winning 107 games. Then they go just absolutely fall off the cliff. And this year, it's much like that year where they won all those games, where they're getting a lot of production out of veterans. Their pitching staff has been really good. Lamont Wade Jr. has been good. Jock Peterson, you got good starts out of Alex Cobb. So Logan Webb's a stud. And they're above the Padres there. And this is a team that didn't get Carlos Correa. Arson Judge was only there for about a half hour, so they didn't get that. They didn't get any big free agents, and everyone was looking down on the Giants because they're like, no one wants to go here. No one wants to be a San Francisco Giant, and they're looking down upon Gabe Kapler again because Gabe Kapler was, after he was the manager in Philly, everyone put a sour taste. Is this guy too smart for his own good? Is he too much by the analytics? Is he going to be able to be a big league manager because he doesn't have the feel? This is now 2 of his last 3 seasons. They're competitive. And they are a good damn team. So the Giants are my second. And third, last but not least, we're going with the fish with bats, the Miami Marlins. You want to talk about a good GM, Kim Ng. That Luis Arraez trade, that is paying absolutely massive dividends. You got a guy that's hit 400 for almost half the damn season. I don't think he's even struck out 20 frickin' times yet. They're getting absolute stud performance out of Jorge Soler this year. Their pitching staff, jeez. You want to talk about being scared. And I think that's one of the biggest things that doesn't get looked upon as much as it should, is how frickin' deep the Marlins are in pitching. They've done a great job. They're like a pitching factory down there. And they're doing this with their Cy Young pitcher with an ERA almost of 5. And they've been great. They have their best record since the last time they won the World Series. So that's my top 3 right there.
I like that. The Marlins have been a lot of fun to watch, and Luis Arraez chasing 400. Yeah, that was, oh my gosh. Kim Ng absolutely made out like a bandit in that trade. And
do you think he does it?
I don't think so, because it's very hard to keep up that pace all year long, but if he did, that would be pretty cool. I mean, it's only been 82 years since the last guy hit 400 in a season, so that would be pretty cool. Pitching-wise, I mean, look, obviously the unfortunate thing for the Miami Marlins is they're stuck in the same division as the team that I honestly think is the best in baseball right now, the Atlanta Braves. And John, you can probably let me know at some point later on whether you agree or disagree with that take. But
they're going to, if the season ends today, they're my World Series favorite, and it's not even close.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't disagree with that take at all. But no, it shouldn't really take away from what a great year the Marlins have been having with a lot of those young guys. They've definitely been fun to watch. And I like your take about the Giants, too, as somebody who follows them a lot. They're personally my favorite National League team. Lamont Wade has definitely been an underrated star on that team. Patrick Bailey I've also really liked a lot. Ever since he has been called up, he has been hitting at around 300. And John, he has also thrown out a lot of base runners this year. I was actually at the game at Citi Field when they played the Mets. Or actually, I was at 2 of the games that this past weekend at Citi Field. The first game, Patrick Bailey hits a 3-run home run to give the Giants the win against New York Mets. And in the bottom of the 9th inning, I think it was Lindor who was on first base. He got caught stealing by Patrick Bailey. He single-handedly won the Giants that game. If it wasn't for him, they would have gotten swept by the Mets in what I think was their first or second series loss since they had that big winning streak right there. So, yeah, they have been very fun to watch. And look, the Giants are only 3 games out of first place, and they're only 1.5 games behind the Dodgers for second. So they've still got just as much of a shot as anybody else. But I think at this point, we need to stop criticizing Gabe Kapler. He has done a really good job. And you look at the roster, it doesn't look like a team that has a lot of stars, but they're making it work with what they have.
Yeah. Would you classify the Dodgers as a disappointment?
I'm going to say borderline. I would lean towards no, but I could understand why you probably would, because they're not really as dominant in years past. So, John, I think the short answer to that question would be talk to me in October, if you know what I mean.
The only reason why I say they're a fringe disappointment is because they've known they've had a lot of injuries at the starting rotation for the last 5 years with the same 3 guys, and they've done anything to do anything about it. I was just curious about that because, big team, only won that 1 World Series of the last 10 years, so.
No, I think that's fair. You and I have pretty much been on record for minimizing that World Series, but in any event, speaking, let's move right along to our next subject. And we got to talk about one of my favorite players in baseball right now, and Mike Trout. And unfortunately, he had a broken hamate bone in his wrist, and he is now out 4 to 8 weeks. And John, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I know you're probably just as much, if not an even bigger fan of Mike Trout. Oh, there it is. There it is.
3 MVPs, baby. I don't think he's ever going to get a fourth now, though.
No, but I remember back on the old days when your YouTube channel was going strong. I remember how much you loved talking about Mike Trout. So,
my guy, he's only a month older than I am, so it makes me feel old.
That's scary. But in any event, I think this now begs the question, since you just mentioned that you didn't think he's going to win a fourth MVP, is he still a top 10 player in Major League Baseball right now?
This absolutely pains me to say this, but at the end of the day, you have to stay on the field. Some of his injuries have been freak injuries. You know, a lot of people said that his career was going to be over last year when he had that back injury, and you had all these articles coming out saying his career was over and he was never going to be able to be the same. He has yet to have a back injury this year, and he's played, I think, 82 games or 79 games, I think. But he has not played a full season in, I think, almost 4 years. And you have to be able to play a full season to be a top 10 player. And, you know, he's not even the best player on his team anymore. And that makes me sick to my stomach to say that. So to me, I'm going to take the cheap answer and I'm going to say, yes, he's still a top 10, but he's number 10. He's fallen out of the top 5 because he just can't stay healthy. When he's on the field, he's as good as they get. But this year, he's on career lows for batting average, career lows for OPS. His WAR, like how he normally accumulates WAR, has not been anything special. His defense has continued to go down over the last couple of years. Doesn't steal bases anymore. So, top 10, he's number 10. Top 5, no longer.
Yeah, I would lean towards no, but because of my fandom of this player, I think, like you, I'm also tempted to keep him in the top 10. But yeah, you brought up his numbers. He's hitting 263, which definitely is not like him. And the fact of the matter is, John, I don't know if this is an all-star season for Mike Trout, even if he was healthy, because 18 home runs, 40 RBIs. I mean, for somebody of his caliber to have those numbers as a quote-unquote like disappointment, that really speaks volumes to how great of a player he is. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I feel like we're now starting to see Mike Trout in a bit of a downward spiral. And as sad as this is to see, ultimately, it's pretty much inevitable at this point now.
I mean, I watched Miguel Cabrera from the time he was 25. I've watched Miguel Cabrera since the time he was 34. And he's been a below league average player since the time he was basically 34, 35. I watched the guy. I remember reading Fangraph articles where they were talking about the most inner and outer pitches hit for home runs on the plate. And Miguel Cabrera's bat was always had at least one of those home runs on either side of the plate. You couldn't sneak a fastball by this guy. Now I watch him get beat by guys that he would have took deep 4 times in the game. And same thing happened to Mike Trout. I mean, like I said, Mike Trout is 1 month older than I am. If Mike Trout's body feels like my body does after I go to work, after I go to work and I come home, and this guy's a professional athlete, I can only imagine. I mean, father time wins all. Bodies break down. But you gotta, I guess at this point, you just gotta hope that maybe, you know, the Angels are gonna have to start thinking about maybe putting him off from center field, put him into a corner spot. If Shohei Ohtani goes, there's a little bit more DH there for him. And hopefully that the back end of his career is more like Big Papi, less so than like Miguel Cabrera, where he's hurting his pec and his arm and his knee and all that stuff. And he's basically almost a -1 WAR win player, which, you know, I don't think that'll ever happen, but you never know, man. Like these injuries when they start piling up. This was a guy that at one point in time he had never finished less than second in the MVP voting. And it absolutely blows my mind he never won a Gold Glove. I remember that first year in the league, Adam Jones won it over him, and it was a freaking travesty. That catch in Baltimore where he robbed J.J. Hardy alone should have won him a Gold Glove that season, his rookie year. But
oh my gosh, yeah.
That's easy. He robbed Prince Fielder that year. He robbed J.J. Hardy that year. He was absolutely insane. Hank, he never finished less than second in the MVP voting at one time for almost 10 years. It was insane. But you got to stay on the field. And he can't stay on the field. And he's not even the best player on his team anymore. So he's number 10. And for the first time in a long time, when you go, who's the best player in the MLB? For the first time in a long time, you could think of 4 names instantaneously that's not Mike Trout. And that goes to show you that he's fallen off.
John, I'm going to piggyback off on your stat. You said that it took a while for him not to be top 2 in MVP voting. He wasn't top 5 in MVP voting until 2020. And even then, I'm not even going to count that season for obvious reasons. So really, last year was the first year he didn't even finish anywhere near, or 2021 was the first year he didn't finish anywhere near the top 10 in terms of MVP votes.
Which is insane. And last year he's hurt, and he hits 40 jacks, and he was hurt. He didn't even play 130 games, and he hit 40 home runs.
And he was 8th in MVP voting.
Yeah, won another Silver Slugger, just another year. So yeah,
just another day in the office. And this is a quote I use often. I don't know if you've seen Ferris Bueller, but he has won Silver Sluggers 9 times.
Yeah. He's insane, man. And like I said, it makes me feel old because he's only a month older than I am. And, I can remember when he got called up. I was at Comerica Park his rookie year, and I remember he was going after the batting title. I watched Dan Herron face Drew Smiley, and he was going after the batting title to try to be the youngest player to win a batting title since Al Kaline did it. I think in 1956 when he hit 355. And I'll never forget seeing him, as a skinny little rookie, 21 years old. A guy who was a month older than me was in the big leagues destroying like that. And I'll never forget watching that at 21 years old. It was insane. But it sucks, man. It makes me feel old.
Yeah, absolutely. But speaking of All-Stars, let's talk about some current All-Stars right now. So every year, obviously, this is one of my favorite times of year because I love when players get recognition getting selected to the All-Star game. However, one of the things that's always bothered me about the All-Star game voting is at the end of the day, and I hate to say this, it's really also a glorified popularity contest, if we're being real. Yep, there's always at least 5 or 10 players that I can name off the top of my head who you could probably make a case should be All-Stars. And John, let me start with you. Who's your first All-Star snub?
So Spencer Steer is probably my first one. The guy's been absolutely great. He was one of the Reds' best hitters while Joey Votto was gone. He absolutely filled the first base void there perfectly for them. And he's been a beast, man, wherever they put him. And, I agree. The All-Star game, it's hard to even whine about it to too much of an extent because we both know it. It's a popularity contest. And then afterward, you have to have a representative of every single team. So the league goes and fills in other spots. And then you get players from my garbage ass team, like Michael Lorenzen, taking a spot from worthy people. So yeah, it's a joke. And then you get remember that one year where the Kansas City Royals had 5 guys in the infield, 2015?
Oh my gosh, yes.
And most of those guys should have been there. I will never forget one year, the Tigers got Brandon Inge in there. I think it was 2009, and they the Phillies and the Tigers teamed up to get Shane Victorino and Brandon Inge in there together. They called it Brand Torino to vote for both of those guys, and they both suck. But they were just like the last fan vote. But go ahead with yours. Mine, Spencer Steer for the first one for me.
Okay, I got to go with Ketel Marte of the Diamondbacks. I mean, if you were to give me the MVP of the Diamondbacks, you could argue that Corbin Carroll has been one of them, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with Zach Gallen either, but Ketel Marte has been spectacular in the month of June, and you could make the case that he is a big reason that the Arizona Diamondbacks are currently in first place right now. And the idea that he is not an all-star because of that month of June, I would say that that is pretty ridiculous, if I am being quite honest. I mean, he definitely got off to a bit of a rough start in the season, but he's really picked up his game, and I don't really find it fair to fault the player for having an AF part of the season, but then having such a spectacular June. I think he's definitely worthy for sure.
100%. The dude has been an absolute stud this year. He's been one of their best players, kind of revitalized his career a little bit because he was kind of meh there for a year or two, but he should definitely be there 100%.
You got another one for me?
Yeah, I got one more, and this one's going to be a bit of a hot take. Fernando Tatis Jr. didn't make it, and Tatis has actually been one of the better right fielders in all of baseball this year. He's got I think he's like in the top 5 in defensive runs saved out there. And my hot take is I think the league purposely didn't put him in there as a reserve because of the PED stuff. I think they were trying to keep him out of it because they're trying to punish him a little bit more and try to keep him out of the spotlight a little bit more because they don't want something as fresh as that. Because I guarantee you, if this year that Tatis had was 1 year later, Tatis would have been in the All-Star game for it. But since it coincided with the suspension, what they don't want a national broadcast talking about, here's Fernando Tatis, what a great story he is. He's finally come back from his PED suspension where he lied about having a ringworm after injecting himself in the ass. But let's sit here and let's applaud him for this. Yay, he cheated, and now he's an all-star. Woo, come on, kids. MLB youth movement. So, yeah, I think he should have been in. He's been a stud, and he's done really good work on right field, too, which a lot of people didn't think he was going to be able to do. So, Tatis is my other one.
All right, so I'm going to give you a few New Yorkers for this next All-Star snub. Number one, I got to go with Brandon Nimmo. I think he has been one of the few bright spots on the New York Mets lineup. Besides Pete Alonso, he's really the only guy on that team that you can argue is having an all-star season. And he's had, 276 batting average, 373 OBP, 460 slugging, 833 OBP with 13 home runs. Obviously, he hasn't quite have the home run production as Pete Alonso, but if you've really been paying attention to the Mets and being in the New York area, I've seen a good amount of their games. Like, Brandon Nimmo is one of the few redeeming qualities on that team. And given how well he's played, I'm shocked he has yet to make an all-star appearance in his career. He's a very underrated outfielder, in my opinion, and I think that's somebody that definitely should have gotten more consideration. And now let's go to the Yankees for this next all-star stub. And on the surface, it doesn't look like there are any Yankees that you could argue are worthy of an all-star appearance after, say, Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole, but I have to go with Clay Holmes. The bullpen has definitely been one of the more redeeming qualities of the Yankees, and Clay Holmes has been absolutely lights out. I think he definitely deserves another all-star appearance for sure.
Yeah, the Yankees have done a nice job. That's their best part of their team, frankly. They're definitely.
Yeah.
I know you low-key wanted to add Josh Donaldson in there for the warning track home.
Oh, go get out of here with that. No.
You were adamant. You had the jersey on. You were ready to go. You were like, we need warning track bat flips in the All-Star game. And they're going to pipe in over Fox the John Sterling. It is high. It is far. No, it's not. And he's going to catch it.
Oh, please. Miss me with that 150 batting average and only one game the Yankees won with him hitting a home run. Come on.
I want to piggyback off of your piggyback.
Oh.
So I'm going to go my homer bias with the Tigers. Michael Lorenzen should not have been our all-star. It should have been Jason Foley. The Tigers bullpen is loaded with guys that could have been an all-star. Jose Cisnero, go look at his numbers. He's been one of the best since May. Jason Foley, guy throws 100-mile-an-hour sinkers. They're like Jordan Hicks movement. It's insane. Alex Lang, up until 2 weeks ago, could have been an all-star. Tyler Holton. Go look at these guys. No one knows who these guys are because the Tigers can't beat the Oakland Athletics. I understand that. But Michael Lorenzen stinks. It was his first good start in 5 starts today against the Oakland Athletics. Who cares? Okay? You're basically playing a AAA team at that point. Your ERA was over 4. The Tigers' most redeeming quality and their best quality, ironically, for the first time in my life over the last 3 years, has been their bullpen. Jason Foley should have been in the damn All-Star game. You haven't seen it. You haven't heard him. You don't know him. Go look him up. He's got some flowing locks and a beast mustache. Go look at this man's numbers. Jason Foley should have been in the All-Star game.
Yeah, no, I think pretty much well said. I mean, the problem is it's a shame that nobody really pays too much attention to the Tigers, although no offense, I'm not sure if too many people really want to be too masochistic as you are with regards to the Detroit Tigers, but
listen, it's a shame that I pay that much attention to the Tigers. Let's be honest here. The fact that I'm not gray yet is miracle in itself. My hair should look like this damn shirt. The fact that I gotta watch that crap every day, destroys me inside. But go look at Jason Foley's numbers. He's really good.
oh yeah, no, he is definitely fantastic. And now let's get to a few quick topics that will probably lead to yours truly having his first ever Hank rant mode since hitting for the cycle 2.0. But let's start with this debate. If you're, who do you think should be the seller more, the Padres or the Angels?
So this is a weird situation where both teams are on the identical spot, but on different ends of the spectrum. Padres spent all that money on all these players and tried to win by just all-starring everybody to death by trying to put a quasi-all-star team out there. They've stunk. They leveraged their future to get Juan Soto, and now they have a trade chip that they could potentially trade off in Juan Soto to try to get back of what they lost to the Nationals. The Angels have yet to still ever put anything decent around Trout, even getting Ohtani, because those guys go, you got the Tungsten Armor Doyle games where they sit there and do something absolutely historic and they lose by 2 runs. So the thing is what the Padres traded to get Juan Soto, I don't know if they'll be able to get anything like they got that they had to trade for, because solely for the fact that Juan Soto, they know that he wants more than $400+ million because he turned it down from the Nationals. And at this point, Juan Soto, although his numbers are good, they're not like they were a couple of years ago where the guy was like Ted Williams 2.0. His production has definitely fell. So I don't know if the prospect capital is going to be as good as what they traded to get him. And on top of, they are stuck with those contracts. So Preller has to try to win to try to make up for what the prospect haul they gave away. So I think it should be the Angels. They absolutely have to trade Shohei. Now that Mike Trout is hurt, Anthony Rendon is always in his forever cast and beating up Oakland A's fans. He's just not going to – that Oakland A's fan he tried to hit is basically the hardest thing he hit all season. He's not good. He's never going to be anything like he was in the Nationals. They've tried to put a team around him with Hunter Renfroe and Gio Urshela, getting Mike Moustakas, whatever, fine, great. But you've seen what the Padres traded for Juan Soto. Now, I think even though it's only going to be for half a year of Shohei, because of what he does on both sides of the ball, you're going to have to give up that equivalent prospect capital to get something like Shohei, even if it's a rental, and not getting him for a couple of years like the Padres did Juan Soto. And the Angels, who have been really bad at drafting and really bad at developing, Joe Adell, anyone who's now stuck on the bus between here and Salt Lake, he's never made it in the big leagues yet. They have to do something. And if they keep Shohei Ohtani, it is the most irresponsible. Artie Moreno needs to turn up the hearing aids because he's not listening to his staff thing they could do, because now you have a Trout that can't carry your franchise anymore. You have a Shohei that's going to be definitely gone at the end of the year because they're not going to make the playoffs and are already skidding out of it. They have to trade Shohei Ohtani. Undoubtedly. They have to try to get someone to come up and the rest of that contract.
I've always been of the belief, and John, you're probably not going to like where I'm going with this, but I've often felt that the Angels needed to trade Mike Trout while he was prime.
Yes! They should have! 100%! And Trout's stupid for signing the contract!
I mean, Trout essentially did a term that I'm... Okay, are you ready for this new term that I'm about to, trademark for this show? Trout agreed to a deal with the devil, is what I like to say.
He and at least Tony Gwynn made it to a couple World Series.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, Nick creating my new little banner for that term. Yeah, that's exactly what he did. He made a deal with the devil, and it's funny. Normally, I like to say that loyalty has its own good qualities, but this is an example where loyalty was not such a good idea. You could have found a way to build around your team, hit the reset button, but nope. You kept Mike Trout, and now you're going to be stuck with him, and you're going to be handcuffed with him on the decline because of injuries. And if you do the same thing to Shohei Ohtani, then I'm just going to say this right now. Artie Moreno should just be in jail. Like, honestly, like, you run a big market team, you spend all that money, and you put it in places that never really help you. I mean, you can maybe blame some of the GMs that he's had in the past. I mean, look, I've been on record saying that Billy Epler is an idiot, and judging by what the Mets have done this year, I stand by that opinion about Billy Epler. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, when you see how much money he's thrown at a lot of names, I think it pretty much starts at the top with the Angels. That guy pretty much should be in jail with the way he ruined the talents of Trout and Ohtani. But as far as the Padres go, you want to talk about teams that made deals with the devil. I mean, look at AJ Preller with that making like Mr. Krabs and reaching for that mattress money and trying to sign all that talents, and look where that's gotten them.
Yeah, fourth place.
Can't even be ahead of the Diamondbacks and the Giants.
I'm gonna blow your mind right now. Think 10 years ago, the Angels signed this guy named Albert Pujols. He was going into his age 32 season, already starting to come off of a decline on his age 31 season, and the Angels suffered for 10 years because he only had 2 good seasons. They got a guy that they have for another, I think, 9 years, who's going into his age 32 season, who's coming into a decline. And now they're losing their best player. Think about that, how that history just repeated itself.
By God, it's like Artie Moreno never learns.
Yep. Now, to defend him right quick, and we can move on. You didn't expect Trout to start breaking down at 29. You expected Trout to break down a little bit more at like 34, 35, 36, to be fair.
Right.
But, you know, that's just how the hat dropped on this one.
I'm sorry, but given his past history, I can't be as nice as you are. I cannot let him off the hook.
Yeah, it's just crazy because
there's there's plenty of other dirty laundry I can air out at Artie Moreno too, especially when you look at how the whole Tyler Skaggs thing happened, and when you saw what happened with Josh Hamilton there. Like, I'm sorry, that guy's scum. He does not deserve to be given any benefit of the doubt whatsoever.
Yep, he's selling, he's not selling, and he sucks.
No, he should be in jail for negligence of All-Stars. That's if there was even such a crime as that.
We're making it. He's getting sentenced the rest of his life.
But in any event, speaking of teams that have been creating criminal offenses, I'm trying not to pop a blood vessel here by talking about the Yankees, but I have a bad feeling you're probably going to hear me go on some Yankee rants over the course of the next few months. And So it's been announced that the Aaron Judge toe injury is worse than I thought. And we heard the news about the ligament tear from Aaron Judge himself. What did the Yankees say? Oh, it's mild. It's not going to be so bad. But now from Aaron Judge, we're hearing it's an absolute tear of the ligament. And all I can say is this. I'm sorry. What? Are you kidding me? This is an example of the Yankees and medical malpractice for trying to sell to us that Aaron Judge his injury isn't as bad as we've made it out to be. And you know what the sad part is? I'm not even surprised by all this. And do you want to know why I'm surprised? I'm not surprised at all about this, John.
Because of Carlos Rodon?
Well, no, not really. I mean, look who announced this. I believe this was Aaron Boone, who I believe is kind of a puppet for Brian Cashman. And look, I don't think you and I have talked enough about the way the Yankees run, but I'm at the point where I'm over Brian Cashman by now. He should have been gone about 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, look, I'm not saying he's a horrible GM. He's made some good moves for them, but when you go so long without going to a World Series and you're a big market team, and when you see the Yankees right now without Aaron Judge and you see the results they're getting as we speak and a 13-0 blowout as of this recording against the Baltimore Orioles, how are you going to expect me to not hold that idiot responsible? The times are changing, my friend. You do the same thing over and over again, expect different results. You have Aaron Judge, you think, oh, we got a team right now. Guess what? You don't have Aaron Judge. You say that his injury isn't as bad. Well, you know what? Sorry, I'm not seeing through it. I know you guys want to sell those overpriced beers and chicken tender buckets at the stadium, but I mean, look, it's okay. All's well. You're probably still going to make the playoffs, and you're still going to make that money anyway. So I would say all's well in the kingdom. No?
And if you look at the way their team has been constructed the last couple of years, it's made no sense. Like, they were so headstrong about keeping IKF as their shortstop for as long as they did, and he was absolutely garbage with the stick. And then you got guys like, yeah, we'll get Josh Donaldson. That'll be fine. He could be our third baseman and play like crap. And like DJ LeMahieu has kind of hit the wall from what he was a couple of years ago. And I like the Anthony Rizzo signing. I mean, his bat should play at that stadium, but it just hasn't. And like what they got out of like Kyle Higashioka and like what they got out of Trevino last year. But this team, it's not like this is a first time thing. Aaron Judge had injury problems for the last couple of years, but the Yankees have continued to roll out the same old, same old. I mean, think of how long Brett Gardner was on this team because of depth. Brett Gardner shouldn't have played on the Yankees nearly as long as he played on the Yankees. He was way shit long into that contract, long as his career at the Yankees. But Cashman has done really kind of a piss poor job at assembling a decent set of core around this team because Giancarlo Stanton is extremely unreliable. Aaron Hicks was so bad for the last couple of years until they put on an Orioles uniform. And then, the issues with the starting rotation, he's done a really bad job at building depth. And, I don't know if he's like praying to God that Jason Dominguez is going to be something that he can hang his hat on next year. And, he's going to come up and rip up the league. I don't know if they're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat with the trade deadline. You'd know better than I regarding their system and who they're going after. But playing in that division and playing the teams they have to play still, it's going to be a battle, man, to get there.
Here's the thing. They could pretend all they want that a trade deadline acquisition would help them. But look, we need to face reality here. Even though on the surface the Yankees aren't really that far behind the Orioles, this split that the Yankees are about to get means absolutely nothing. Yeah, you won the first 2 games of the series. You were up 2-0 going into the 6th inning of the game yesterday. Then that lead doesn't last long. You end up losing 6-3. Now you're getting absolutely shit wrecked today against a really good Orioles team, and you're barely ahead of the Toronto Blue Jays, and you're still 5 games ahead of the Boston Red Sox approximately, who, by the way, swept the Yankees without Judge. Not only did they sweep them, they won 2 out of 3 in the Bronx. And John, I was at the one game they won in that series. We probably could have lost that game too. The Yankees lineup is absolutely mid. And you're telling me that this is a team that could go out and buy? Hell no. Blow it up. I'm sorry. This team is the definition of insanity. They love to rely on home runs or nothing. They do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. The problem is when you expect different results, when you keep running it back, and when you don't develop prospects well, you get a downward spiral like this year. Blow it up. I'm dead serious. You're not going anywhere with this team whatsoever.
It's a look in the mirror time and have a real conversation with reality at this point.
But that's okay. The Yankees are making a lot of money with those chicken tender buckets and all that other merchandise, and because they're the big name New York Yankees, nothing's going to change. All's well in the kingdom of the Bronx. We're all fine.
Now, you don't believe, like, going forward with guys like high-end ceilings like Volpe and Dominguez, that there could be an opportunity to build like an actual younger core around Aaron Judge. Because you look at like the baby Yankees when they almost went to the World Series, everyone thought,
oh no, those 3 you can, but I'm looking at like the rest of the team. Like the rest, aside from those 3 names that you just mentioned, nobody should be safe. Actually, I take that back. Garrett Cole's safe, but that's because of his contract. That's neither here nor there. Oh shit, I forgot. Giancarlo Stanton's getting paid a lot of money. Oh,
to play 90 games a year.
You mean glass bones and paper skin?
Yeah, and he can't play outfield anymore.
Sorry for throwing that random SpongeBob reference out there.
I can dig it. But yeah, I agree, dude. It's just like the Yankees. I think when the baby Yankees all came up, and everyone thought that this was the team that was going to win the next title, and this was to be the next team they build around, and it didn't work. I mean, Gary Sanchez, not even on the Yankees anymore. He only lasted a couple of years where he was run out of town because how bad his defense was, and he just couldn't hit consistently. And like Glaber, like I think he's a good player, but he's not nearly the ceiling that people thought. And he playing shortstop, I think actually screwed up maybe his career path because he said it was affecting his offense at the plate. And the last 2 off seasons, he tried to invest like in Rodon, but I mean, anyone could have seen that coming a mile away that he was going to get hurt. So it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. It's just, I don't know. It's a reality check time. But like you said, they're making money on them chicken tenders and they want playoff ticket sales. So I think they'll probably buy.
Okay, let's end this show before I plop another blood vessel on you. But in any event, John, thank you so much for hopping on with me in our first ever episode of Hitting for the Cycle 2.0, I guess we could call it. But I'm super excited to have this show back. And John, it's super great to have you on a weekly basis.
Hank, it's going to be an honor, my friend. This is one of many, sir.
Awesome. But before we go, of course, we also have to get to the plugs. And you have just watched our first ever episode of Hitting for the Cycle on the Empty the Bench podcast network. I'm Hank Indictor. That's John Czech. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at HFTC ETB. And then, of course, follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And, of course, please check out the YouTube link down below. Hit that big red button. Give us a like and a subscribe. And tell all your friends about us. There's lots more great content on the ETB network where this came from. You check out 3&D with Paul. You check out Fruity Cereal. a lot more other shows that I'd love to talk about, but time permitting, I can't really get to them. And of course, please follow the website, etbpodcast.com, for great blogs and more information as well. And on behalf of John Czech, I'm Hank Indictor, and we will see you guys next time.